edition of From the Field to the Fans. I'm your host, Odus, Evbagharu, and with me, sports editor Quixem Ramirez, who filled in for me last week. I was out of town at a convention. That was really fun, but did a fantastic job, man. You, Mariah, Kirk, you guys held it down for me a little bit.
I don't know about fantastic. It's tough to fill your shoes as a host, but it's nice to be back in my role as just a contributor, not the host. It's a lot of pressure.
Well, appreciate the fine compliment, but you guys did do a fantastic job, and a team that we're hoping does a fantastic job this weekend is Texas State. Not this weekend, excuse me. On Tuesday is Texas State when they play Lafayette. Lafayette coming into town Tuesday night, ESPN2. It's going to be a big deal. Hopefully the students show up. Hopefully, there's the tailgate atmosphere starting at noon on Tuesday is going to be popping. And hopefully Bobcats come up and show out. I've seen on Twitter, #RevengeAtWhacker. For those of you that don't know, last year it was the first ever Sun Belt game. They had to go play on the road in Lafayette. Wasn't a very pretty game, losing 48-24. Tyler Jones, 58 yards rushing, 10 of 15 in the air, 66 yards. Second career game after the big win against Wyoming, so that was tough for him. Terrence Broadway, the defending Sun Belt Player of the Year, had a great game, 18 of 28, 335 yards, 4 touchdowns. Louisiana as a whole, 212 yards, so that was pretty impressive for them. And then Brandon Smith, 2 kickoff return touchdowns for 192 yards there at the end of the game, so kind of made the game a little bit closer to what it really was. But the Bobcats got it handed to them in Lafayette, and they're looking for some revenge on national television come Tuesday.
Coach Fran put it well. He kind of said that they got their butts spanked in a way. He said that they were spanked. They weren't ready, or they weren't on that level. This year, things have changed. Texas State 3-2, Lafayette 2-3. Lafayette's the one that's looking a little shaky, while as Texas State, top 20 team in offense, they're kind of rolling in that regard. And the flip is switched. They're at home Tuesday night, ESPN. It's a big game. And as you look at last year's stats, I wouldn't read too much into it because the amount that Texas State has changed in that 1 year span. Tyler Jones has played. He's been more seasoned. Terrence Franks is coming to his own. Rob Lowe still running the ball very well. The defense a little shaky here and there, but they're aggressive and they're doing good things. Make or break. And I wouldn't read too much into that matchup for sure.
Yeah, Texas State 3-1 heading into that matchup from last year. They had a lot of positive momentum, and I think that Lafayette game put some things into perspective for them. You kind of saw what they needed to recruit a little bit. The Louisiana, that front line on both ends was really big. Bobcats have gotten bigger, stronger up front, so that's going to help this matchup. Remember, Bobcats are coming off a 10-game layoff, playing Idaho, homecoming, being able to pull that win off 35-30. Big win for the Bobcats. So 10-day layoff, they get to rest physically, but most importantly, I think mentally. 3 tough games in Illinois. Then you play Tulsa after losing David Gish. And that Illinois game, too, to go back to that game, rain delay, all that stuff going on, and then, playing Idaho, homecoming, all the theatricals that go with that. So really important for the Bobcats to get a mental break as they play Lafayette. Lafayette, like you said, 2-3. They've lost to Louisiana Tech, Ole Miss. Lost some games. I mean, they have definitely had their struggles this season. Terrence Broadway, not the same guy he was a year ago. 178.4 yards per game, 10th in the Sun Belt. Not the guy that threw for 335 yards against the Bobcats. And they have Elijah McGuire, who's gotten 66.2 yards per game, 7th in the Sun Belt. But that's not how Lafayette played last year. They had Alonzo Harris, big factor for them on rushing on the ground. He's not there anymore, and they're struggling to run the ball, struggling to throw the ball, and it hadn't been good for the Raging Cajuns this year.
What's interesting about this team, they're returning 19 starters. Lafayette is 19 starters of 22 possible, and yet they've regressed in every metric across the board. Passing, rushing, defense, turnover differential. There's not a lot of things that they're doing right. That doesn't mean that we should take them lightly and say, hey, we're way better than them this year. But the switch has been flipped, and you look at them. It's cause for concern. I talked to Coach Washington at practice Thursday, and he talked about how, this team, all they need is one game. All they need is one game to, turn their momentum around and, start. And once they get that, they're a dangerous team. But as of right now, you look at them at the currently constructed, they're not so tough.
Yeah, and 272.2 yards per game given up on the ground. It's the worst in Sun Belt Conference play and Sun Belt period. Lafayette's not the same team that it was last year. It's going to be really interesting to see how the Bobcats come out and play. And as we analyze the Lafayette game, we're not the only person that has an interesting perspective on it. Here's Coach Fran, who talked to you at Thursday's practice.
I have Coach Dennis Franchione with me. Coach, 3 straight, down to the wire mental games. What do you tell them to prepare themselves mentally for a tough game against Lafayette?
Well, all of our games are going to be like that. If we're going to win, that's for sure. I mean, it's a battle, and every college football play comes down to a handful of plays or less, and we certainly have been the epitome of that through most of our games this year. And we're just a few plays away from being 5-0, and we're just a few plays away from being 1-4. So we just got to get up and play every play, and they've done a great job of doing that so far.
48-24 in your last meeting against Lafayette last year. Teams have switched, your offense up-tempo. They've kind of returned 19 starters. Do you feel like you've closed the gap on them this year heading into your matchup?
I hope so. Last year wasn't much fun. I know we're a better football team. Whether we've moved into the front seat with them remains to be seen, but we're better, and so we're anxious to prove we're better. But they are the class of the league and deserve to be talked about that way because they've been the champion 3 years in a row. So that's what you have to model yourself after, and that's what you have to work to be.
Terrence Broadway, starting quarterback, senior, one of the premier quarterbacks in the conference, led the league in passing rating last year. He's kind of struggled this year, in his progressions and everything. Have you seen that on the tape, or what's going on with their offense, since it hasn't started well so far?
Well, I think the biggest thing is they played good football teams. They played Ole Miss, who's number 4 in the nation. They played Boise State, who's always a good football team. The one game that was probably a little bit of a surprise was Louisiana Tech for whatever reason. But I thought Terrence played very well last week against Georgia State. He looked like he was in a pretty good groove, and he got his good receiver back, and that helped him, I think, a little bit. And he's still the guy in this league, and I think we all recognize him as the guy that he drives their team, and he's certainly capable of winning football games.
In that game, Broadway set season high in passing yards and passing touchdowns. Like you said, he had his starting receiver, Jamal Robinson, back. What is having him, add to the offense dimension?
Well, he's a big play guy. He's 6'4". He's got good speed. He makes you have to think about, do you double team him? And if you double team him, then what do you do with the others? What do you do with the run game? Things like that. And if you don't double him, he's a force to be reckoned with out there, and he's going to make plays. And so it's a challenge to defend their entire offense across the board.
Offensively, you have 2 good running backs, Terrence Franks, Rob Lowe, splitting the carries. Kind of consider them co-starters. How easy does it make your job, when you have 2 guys that you can rely on to run the ball?
Well, good, as long as they're both healthy. You don't worry about which one's in the game. Rob may be a little better on certain plays, and Terrence may be a little better on certain ones. But for the most part, they're just 2 good, solid running backs, and I don't look out there and see which one's in because I have confidence in both of them.
Tuesday night game, ESPN2, your first game of your career coaching on ESPN on Tuesday night. What does this game mean for the program that you're trying to build?
Well, I think this is an opportunity for the nation to see Texas State football. This is just our 3rd year. We're 2.5 years into being an FBS program, and it's an opportunity to display that. It's a great opportunity for our university and our students, student body, to display their spirit and what our university is about. And for San Marcos, it's a great opportunity for our beautiful town to have an opportunity to display itself, because this is a great place to live and a great university in so many ways. And we hope our football team can be a good representative of everything Saturday or Tuesday night.
Yeah, that was a very, very interesting interview with Coach Fran. Something that he said that I kind of want to get your perspective on is that you had a good question about Jamal Robinson. We talked about how Terrence Broadway has been struggling this year, but he gets Jamal Robinson back. You alluded to a 6'4" target. I mean, how are the Bobcats going to try to defend a guy like that?
Coach Washington, secondary coach, kind of outlined how they're going to go and attack him. They are going to mix up coverages, double team him occasionally, kind of give him a little different looks every time just to mix it up. They're not going to single coverage him. They're not going to double coverage him. It's hard to replicate what he does in a game day because there's no one on the team that's 6'4", which makes it hard to simulate what kind of player he is. And the offense, when you look at it, they're scoring 33 points per game with Jamal Robinson playing and 12 without. It's a huge difference, and this team is really potent with him.
So you would consider him a spotlight?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, definitely a spotlight. And we always go through this. We have our spotlight players of the games to look out for. For me, to start off with, is Greg Mager, and it's almost like every week. I think you kind of talked about it too. I pick him, but this week is going to be especially important. Field position is always an important part of the game. But Greg Mager, because Daniel Cadona, Raging Cajuns punter, averages 46.5 yards per punt, second in the Sun Belt, 8th in the country. And Greg Mager, he's getting 23.2 yards per punt return, and he's had 4 punt returns this year. So look for him to probably break one against the Raging Cajuns come Tuesday.
I'm going to stick with the secondary. I'm going to go Colby Targun, the guy, that's going to be a safety valve when he needs it. Colby Targun, 10 tackles against Idaho. He's been playing really well, got an interception, a couple pass breakups earlier in the year. He's going to be really key when you need that over-the-top coverage against Jamal Robinson.
Yeah, and I'm going to stick on defense. Defense wins championships, right? I'm going to stick with defense. I'm going to go with my Nigerian brother, Michael Odiari. First in the Sun Belt in sacks with 5.5. Remember, 4.5 on homecoming against Idaho. That's going to be very important. Put pressure on Broadway. They're going to need him to step up. He's also first in the Sun Belt tackles for losses with 7.5 as well. And with their leading rusher averaging 66.2 yards per game. Look for Odiari to live in the in Lafayette's backfield.
No, it's every game is really important to focus on the quarterback. But my second player, Tyler Jones, 76 yards against Idaho, season low. In his previous game against Louisiana Lafayette, also his second career game ever, 66 yards. He didn't have a lot of success there, but in the year of seasoning, off-season, he's just a completely different player. Prior to the Idaho game, he was averaging 240 yards and 4 touchdowns per game. Look for him to bounce back. Coach Fran expects it. He expects it. He's really the cog in the middle of the offense.
Yeah, and that's important. You throw all these numbers out there. We're looking at by the numbers. You got some interesting numbers that you want to throw out there, don't you?
Yeah. My first number, -9. That's Louisiana Lafayette's turnover differential. They've committed 10 turnovers and created 1. It's a disparity that you look at it, and that's a big cause of the problems that they're having offensively.
Oh, look at you, the negative number.
Yeah.
That's the first time this year we've used a negative integer. Can that be my vocab of the day?
Yeah.
Integer.
Mixing
Okay.
it up.
All right. Sweet. Deal.
SAT word of the day.
Integer. Look it up. -2. It's the second time in school history that the Bobcats will be shown on a premier station, ESPN2. All eyes on San Marcos, fastest growing city in the country for 2 years in a row now. It's going to be really interesting to see how the Bobcats do under pressure and all that, but that's going to be great. So, some consider Tuesday the second day of the week. It's on ESPN2. Tyler Jones's numbers too, so maybe there's something about that too that that might be come be a good luck charm for the Bobcats on Tuesday.
Second number, 24. That was the difference between Lafayette last year and Texas State last year. 24 points. Look for that to decrease because A, Texas State is better. B, Lafayette's a little regressed there. And if you can get that differential down to a reasonable number, the margin is very thin. They have a very thin margin for error against teams because Coach Fran said it often, they're going to play close games just because that's the way they're constructed. And look for this game to be closer than that margin.
Yeah, that's a great number. All right, so I'm gonna spiel a lot of numbers out here, but my second number is 23,722. That's the average home attendance for the Bobcats in 3 games this season. That's 6 in the Sun Belt. And you got to be asking yourself, how can a school of 36,790, which, by the way, 4th biggest school in the state of Texas, public school behind UT, A&M, and U of H, Houston, how can they average that? I mean, if you look at the number 1 home attendance, that's Lafayette with 28,748. You know how much go to their school? 16,885. Number 2, Arkansas State. They average 28,163. Arkansas State's enrollment, 13,415. Number 3, Appalachian State, 25,038. Average attendance. Enrollment, 19,089. Number 4, South Alabama, 24,738. That's average attendance. People that go to South Alabama enrollment, 15,007. Number 5, Georgia Southern. Average attendance, 23,828. Enrollment, 20,584. All 5 schools before the Bobcats are nowhere close to their role. In fact, the Bobcats pretty much double everyone minus Georgia Southern. And the average attendance, to me, is weak for Texas State. How can schools with enrollment less than than the average attendance? So the Bobcats definitely need to step it up in that game, and that's going to be very important. Tuesday night game. All eyes on San Marvelous, as some would like to call it. The fans must show up. More than 23,722 is going to have to show up. It's not going to cut it against a team like Lafayette, who's prepared. They've won the Sun Belt Conference last year, tied with Arkansas State. The Bobcats are going to need the home field advantage come Tuesday night.
Talk about big games. Tuesday night, ESPN2. If you really want to consider yourself a legitimate football program, you need to pack this stadium. You need to show ESPN, the national audience, that this game matters. And that's something, like you said, the enrollment and the average attendance, that ratio needs to start moving in the other direction.
Definitely. All right, Quixem brags every week. He's undefeated right now in Pick'em. So we got to pick him. Got to pick up the game. So who you got and what's your score?
Tough one. It's probably the toughest one I've had all year. I'm going to go with Texas State 31, Lafayette 35. Very close game. Comes down to the last minute. Tyler Jones plays well. Just Terrence Broadway just does a little better.
Well, 3-2, might as well. Texas State, Tuesday night. They're going to win the ball game, I think, 42-35. I think it's going to be a one-possession game. I think they're going to keep it close. I think Lafayette turns over the ball late. It's going to be a very fun game to watch. It's going to be really important for the Bobcats to come out fast. And I do think Greg Mager finally gets that punt return touchdown. He came close against Idaho. Maybe this week they'll finally unleash the beast. You got any final thoughts?
I'm just excited for this game. Tuesday night. The biggest game on the schedule probably this year, and it's a statement. It's just a statement. We've said it a lot in the last podcast, but if any game is a statement, it's this one in the national spotlight.
Boy, can I piggyback off that? If you want to talk about a statement, I got a letter that Coach Franchione wrote to basically the fans and the Texas State student body. This Tuesday night, all eyes will be on Bobcat Stadium as we host the defending Sun Belt champions. It will be the only college football game in the country that day. So this is our chance, our opportunity to show the nation who we are at Texas State University. The game will be nationally broadcast on ESPN2, which will be the second time in school history that the Bobcats will be shown on a premier station. I need you. This team needs you. This community needs you. I'm challenging you for 60 minutes to come to the game. Show the nation your Bobcat pride and get crazy under the lights in Bobcat Stadium.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
Coach Fran couldn't have said it any better. If you have any comments, leave it on universitystar.com. Tweet us at universitystar or at ustar_sports using the hashtag Field2Fans. For sports editor Quixem Ramirez, I'm your host, Odus Evbagharu, and like I always tell you, we'll see you next time. Bye.